Yes. Welcome, everyone. Cannabis News with Joe Klare for June 1st, 2018, presented by the Marijuana Times. Check us out on marijuanatimes.org. Click that video tab on marijuanatimes.org to find this show. Check out all the great articles that are over there as well. marijuanatimes.org. You can also find us on Vimeo, our major video platform now since the purge. From YouTube, vimeo.com/marijuanatimesx. Search the Marijuana Times on Vimeo. Today, we're talking about medical marijuana in Florida. What's going on there? Also, concerns about synthetic CBD out in Utah. Talk about that. Also, a new poll out of the UK, across the pond, as I'm sure some people still say and refer to it as. The United Kingdom, a new poll about legalization there. We'll cover all of that, of course. But first, Cannabis News brought to you by Natureside and their line of organic, all-natural pesticides. Nature-side.com. CIDE is how you spell side. If you're a cannabis cultivator, you want to be regulatory compliant. You don't want to put harmful chemicals on your grow. You want to grow safe and poison-free. You can do that, of course, with Natureside. Check them out, nature-side.com. They're organic, all-natural pesticides. Do it organic and natural pesticides. Everybody has pest problems. Their cannabis cultivations. That's why you need Natureside, their expertise and their products and more. Nature-side.com. This first story by Julia Granowitz over at marijuanatimes.org. Activist John Morgan suggests Florida governor accept judge's ruling on the smoking ban. I believe it was last week. It might have been last Friday. May have been earlier this week. I'm not sure. You can go back and check out the episodes. We talked about the Judge Karen Gevers, ruled that the ban against medical marijuana smoking, or against smoking for medical marijuana patients, that the legislature passed, was against the constitutional amendment that was passed by voters in 2016. It's no one's surprise it was less than a full hour before the Department of Health had filed to appeal the judge's ruling. And now as the ruling is waiting in the state's First District Court of Appeal. John Morgan earlier this week, who was the Orlando attorney who started People United for Medical Marijuana, and who happens to be the attorney representing the two women whose quality of life depends on their ability to smoke medical marijuana, called on Florida Governor Rick Scott to just quit now. He said, quote, "I've got clients who can tell me at any time to settle or stop their case. Rick Scott is the boss, and the buck stops there. We will fight this if we have to, but we really shouldn't have to. Governor Scott should say enough is enough." It is a little weird that the state is going to go to bat and appeal this ruling. I mean, it's weird that they, the ban in the first place, but once you lose in court, really just to pile on against these people who should have the option to smoke medical marijuana. If you're really going to be serious about giving people access, sick people with ailments, access to medical marijuana, you have to include smoking. I would submit you have to include home growing as well. Again, if you're serious about giving these people access to medical marijuana and letting them have a choice in their medicine and letting them have a choice of getting away from dangerous addictive prescription drugs, I don't know. But a lot of states are not allowing flower. They're not allowing smoking. I know Ohio's medical marijuana program doesn't allow smoking. I'm pretty sure Pennsylvania's doesn't. A lot of new medical marijuana laws. Even places that have, dispensaries and what would be considered a decent medical marijuana system, they're banning smoking, which is how a lot of people get their medicine. Maybe they can't vape for whatever reason. They don't like edibles. They should have the right to do that. It's how most people still get their medicine. There's no reason not to. There's no reason not to give these people the option of a smokable medical marijuana. This next story is from apnews.com. U.S. raises concern about illnesses tied to synthetic pot. Now, we've done these stories in the past. Obviously, the spice and the K2 that a lot of people get from gas stations, the potpourri, whatever you want to call it. But this is a little bit different. U.S. health officials are urging states to regulate marijuana oil extracts after investigating a rash of illnesses tied to the products in Utah. A report released last week, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that synthetic products falsely labeled as cannabidiol, or CBD, sickened as many as 52 people from October through January. The CDC urged states to set up regulatory and control systems, quote, to minimize the risk of recurrences of this emerging public health threat. CBD is derived from cannabis, but is designed not to produce a high. Users say it provides relief from pain and can fight seizures. This year, Utah passed a new law that supporters say will prevent the illnesses from happening again. The oil has been previously in a legal gray area, but now apparently they're having problems with unregulated CBD. People don't know what's in it. Maybe they're not, they don't follow the brands, the companies that are known for producing good, reliable CBD. They just, see what's something on the shelf and they buy it and give it a shot, and it's been making sick. Another, another reason for legalization. Get it out in the open, regulate it, whatever, but legalize it. There's no kind of prohibition that's going to stop synthetic products. The only thing that's going to increase the safety of CBD is legalization. Now, speaking of legalization, we go across the pond to the UK, United Kingdom. This is yougov.co.uk. They did this big poll of people, and they asked them about the dangerousness of cannabis, if they think it should be legal, what level of legality it should have. A ton of questions, and as it turns out, a majority support liberalizing policy towards cannabis. The public has a reasonably liberal attitude towards, quote, soft drugs, end quote, and perceive cannabis as being less harmful than tobacco or alcohol. The story talks about how drug policy has been considered really a third rail of British politics, much the same way that, Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and things like that are in the United States. Some have been more willing to propose a change in policy in recent years. But there's still fear among many politicians that taking it up as a political issue will lead to repercussions from a hostile electorate. Latest polling shows the public actually has quite liberal attitudes on this topic. We'll take a look at the first poll. A majority of Brits back a softer stance on cannabis. When you ask the straight-up question on legalization of cannabis, the public are almost equally divided, with 43% supporting. When you ask to what extent would you support or oppose the legalization of cannabis in the UK, 41% opposed and 15% do not know. With regard to soft drugs such as cannabis, which of these statements comes closest to your own view? 40% say criminalization, meaning prohibition. 24% say decriminalization. 27% say legalization. And 9% say don't know. So if you combine those who want to keep it criminalized at 40% and the combined numbers from decriminalization and legalization, you get 51%. So either decriminalization or legalization supporters, 51 to 40 over those who prefer to continue prohibition in the UK. When you ask the Brits to compare cannabis to other things like heroin, cocaine, tobacco, alcohol, and all that, you find that cannabis is considered much safer. 91% said heroin is very harmful. 78% said cocaine is very harmful, 56% for tobacco, 32% for alcohol, and only 25% said they see a cannabis as very harmful. Only 4% said that for caffeine. 28% say not very harmful, and 7% say not harmful at all. When it comes to cannabis, again, the only drug in the list that is considered by Brits to be safer than cannabis is caffeine, as you can see if you have the video version, of course, of the poll there. If you have the audio version of the show, if you are on Apple Podcasts and you're checking us out through that and the audio-only version of the show, go to marijuanatimes.org, vimeo.com/marijuanatimes. You can find the video version of the show. This last poll, or this last piece of the poll that I brought up here on the screen, the numbers I talked about earlier, the 40% for criminalization and the 51% combined for decriminalization and legalization, they broke that down into political leanings, gender, and age. And as you see right there, again, the people who voted conservative are more likely to vote for criminalization to the tune of 57%. Those who voted for the Labor Party, only 30% say criminalization. When it comes to gender, 41% of females say criminalization is the way to go, while 38% of males say that legalization, males, 31% to 23% over females. When it comes to age, legalization is at 34% for those 18 to 24, and as the age groups get older, that number drops down to 17% of those 65 and older who are for legalization. By contrast, those 65 and older who support prohibition is at 54%. So, it's an interesting poll. You can go check it out. It's linked, as is everything that we talk about on the show is linked in the description of this video. You can go check out that poll and see what's going on in the UK. Things are moving along. The progress is happening everywhere. It's going to happen at different clips and different time frames and all that. And I don't think it'd be going on a limb to say that cannabis will be pretty much mostly legalized here in the United States and definitely in Canada before they get around to it in Britain. But as you can see, public policy is moving that way. And as always, the demographics, the younger people supporting legalization and decriminalization more than the older people do. The demographics, momentum, a bunch of things make it inevitable. And it's up to activists in the UK and their supporters and allies to make it happen in the United Kingdom, as we're trying to do here in the United States. We do that through marijuanatimes.org, the Marijuana Times. Also through this show, Cannabis News. Keep spreading the word about the videos. Share them on your social media. However you spread the word about Cannabis News. This is episode number 150. Yes, that's right. Another milestone here for Cannabis News. Thanks to Marijuana Times. Thanks to everybody who watches this show. Thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com for being a proud sponsor of the show. Check out their organic, all-natural pesticides, nature-side.com. As I said, check us out and help us spread the truth about cannabis at marijuanatimes.org. Click that video tab to get the show. Thanks, everybody. That's going to be it for the week. You can go start your weekend now. And I'll see you next week on Cannabis News.